Are believers dumber than atheists? Do people who believe have lower IQs? Certainly, I'm not talking about you here tonight. You know, looking at the headlines these days, you got to wonder. People seem to be better than ever at believing what they want to in spite of the facts. The title, intellectuals, can connote somebody out of touch who lives in a world of ideas, totally cut off from reality. Granted, that can be true. But the same charge can be leveled against many of those who might proudly call themselves anything but intellectuals. When 60% of people in our country still think the president was not born on American soil, you got to wonder. When almost 1 in 5 of our fellow citizens think he is a Muslim, you got to wonder. When far more Americans believe in ghosts and UFOs than in evolution, you got to wonder, though I kind of believe in UFOs. As you listen to some of the politicians these days talking, you got to wonder. Our tendency is to dumb down everything. And it's costing us dearly. This morning, in Birmingham, England, a man and a convert to Catholicism and a priest, whose name was John Newman, was beatified by our Holy Father Benedict, his first ever beatification, maybe his only. In this powerful moment in our church's history, and at a time in our nation's history, when it seems the intellect is being overlooked at best and disdained at worst, by beatifying Newman, our church today is celebrating the life of the mind and rescuing the idea of the intellect from the ash heap of the pejorative. We are holding up intellect as a term of praise. We are holding up the life of the mind with the greatest regard. For this Newman, the life of the mind was seamlessly interwoven with the heart. And it is both together that create a full and a rewarding existence. As John Stuart Mill wrote, next to selfishness, the principal cause which makes life unsatisfactory is lack of mental cultivation. To that end, this same Newman is responsible for a movement on secular campuses that sought to form students morally and worked to foster their intellectual growth. 120 years ago, he started a ball rolling. A ball began to roll, and just 60-plus years ago, that ball touched this neighborhood when a group of students from Washington University gathered in the basement of Our Lady of Lourdes Parish just up the street and founded a Newman Club. And that Newman Club has led to us here tonight in this Newman community, still trying our best to foster moral development in students and encouraging their intellectual growth. Here, where the life of the mind is celebrated, not as an enemy of the soul or of the heart, but as a real source and a real support for the soul's work, and not as an aside to belief, not as something to be suspended so that we can believe, but rather something worth listening to in us and respected in our journeys of faith and of hope and of love. For to Newman, and to all of us, I hope, the pursuit of a spiritual life and an intellectual life are inseparable. The life of the mind and spiritual progress are inextricably interwoven with each other. In other words, wash you, though many across the street would beg to differ, to be a scholar and to be a Christian is not in the least incompatible. Not in the least incompatible. As someone said once, study without prayer can get prideful. Prayer without study can get goofy. What Newman would have us do is to become lovers, lovers of the truth, independent thinkers, faithful to revelation, and guided by the vast, vast wisdom of our church. From shadows and images into the truth. That's the epitaph he chose for his tomb. From shadow and images into the truth. This was a love for the truth that required his life. And if we dare to love the truth, it will require our lives as well. It caused him many a suffering. And if we decide to become lovers of the truth, it will cause us many a suffering. It was in that pursuit of the truth that he was led to study the fathers of our church. And because he fell in love with the wisdom and the truth he found there, to reform his own tradition of Anglicanism. And when that wouldn't work, at great cost, even of his dearest friends, he converted to Catholicism. He was once described as the most dangerous man in England because of ideas. Can the mind be holy? You betcha, Newman would say in way bigger words. Holiness of mind was behind everything he did and everything he wrote. He knew the power of human reason and that it could be a servant of faith. If we were to allow this great seeker of the truth to speak to us tonight, what might he say? I think he'd say something like, reason is to be trusted and respected, but never alone, never divorced from the heart. Because you see, faith is so much like love. Every love is reasonable. We think about it. We try to make sense about it. We try to understand why we love this particular person and how to do that best. Every love is reasonable. But we all know that love goes also beyond reason at some point, doesn't it? Well beyond reasons. Try to give reasons why you want to get married. Try to give reasons why you married that particular person out of all the rest. Try to give reasons for monogamy. Yes, love is reasonable, and much more. So with faith, it is reasonable to believe. And we use reason to assist us in our faith. And still it is more. Much, much more. And, he would add, reject as false anything that asserts that truth is completely subjective. In this gospel tonight, Jesus did not praise deceit. Rather, he praises, if you notice that text of the parable, he praises the use of the mind. How clever that manager was to figure this out. And he's praising the use of the mind in all of us to be clever as a fox in helping the things of the kingdom be accomplished in this world, in working with this world to move it towards a world of peace and justice and love. Use your mind, he says. Use that awesome brain. Be clever in accomplishing God's purposes. In other words, my friends, God needs your mind. God needs your brain. God needs your brilliance. Got it? God needs your brilliance. On the occasion of the beatification of John Henry Cardinal Newman, perhaps tonight, before I conclude these reflections, I can ask you to do something very briefly and just in your own keeping. I'd like to invite you in just a moment of quiet to give your minds to Christ. To give your minds to Christ. To dedicate your considerable intellect to the service of Jesus Christ and of his kingdom. In the quiet of your heart, just for a moment, would you think about that? Are believers dumber than the rest? Not if we're smart enough to know the importance and the place of the mind. And if that makes believers stupid, then so are lovers.